Did you know bees don't fly? They can't fly. Most insects cannot fly. Dragonflies, other things. I know, you're thinking, oh my gosh, you're crazy. Stay tuned and find out how this is possible and why they are essentially hiding it. I just saw an article from, I think they posted it last night, and it looks like, well, this is what's going on. There is a company called To the Stars Academy, and it is being funded by Blink 182, if y'all remember that band. Tom DeLonge, I believe he was the lead singer, and it is to see if there is any extraterrestrial life, and just essentially follow up with UFO claims and things like that. Well, they did find something pretty amazing. They were able to test one of the pieces that was off of a broken craft just recently, and it did come back as something that we don't know what it is, that scientists don't know what it is, okay? And so I was like, wow, this is amazing. It's like, you know, civilian company that's going to be doing all of this. And I don't want to be negative about this, but I just want to tell y'all my feelings about it. And I'm going to follow it and see what's going on with it. But I watched a lot of the interviews and stuff, and I'm going to show y'all that material in just a minute. And here's the thing. Apparently, they are connected to the secret space program. From what I'm gathering, they are just now kind of like a civilian arm of it. And by watching the interview, it was kind of disappointing because it's like he admitted, yeah, you know, we've been lying to y'all, but we're going to be doing all of this stuff and you're going to find out about it, but we're not going to be able to tell you everything because I have a non-disclosure and all of this stuff that was just so strange. He's just kind of like talking out both sides of his mouth. And I'm not trying to be negative about this. I understand that it is hard for the military to declassify any of this stuff, but it is pretty disappointing because the thing is, this stuff we already knew. You know, and there's people saying, oh, this is amazing. And there's people saying like me, they're like, okay, we've known this for years. Can y'all give me some actual information? And that's exactly how I feel. But then people commented like, oh, but people can't handle all of the truth, so they have to trickle it out. That's ridiculous. That is ridiculous. Why? That makes no sense. But I do want to talk about something I feel is very important that they aren't looking at, or they're not talking about how they're looking at it. And it is the fact that they are using conventional science and knowledge that we know of at this point to study things that we supposedly don't know about. Okay, let me explain what I mean by that. There was a quote by one of the pilots that saw one of these crafts, and he said, you know, to fly something like that would take so much energy. How are they doing it, and how is it so fast? Well, here's the thing. We only know of, you know, if you're normal mainstream and you've never looked into ancient type technology and things like that, we only know of like the combustion engine and, you know, things that we use, you know, how planes fly, how cars drive, how regular motors work. But in order to understand what's going on with these crafts and other things, you have to essentially forget everything you've been taught. And what I mean by that is a lot of what we were taught is not exactly accurate. But there are ways to fly without flying. That sounds crazy, right? Well, it is called many different things, but it's essentially levitating. It is pinning. They call it quantum pinning, quantum locking, quantum, they put quantum in front of everything just to make it sound fancy, but, and that's what I want to talk about today. How many of you know that bees cannot fly? Or beetles, or dragonflies, or most insects? You're probably thinking, yeah, they can. No, they can't. Think about the wings on a butterfly. I mean, not on a butterfly. Well, let's just stick with the bumblebee and dragonflies. Think about their delicate little, thinner than paper wings. And then think about their body. And then think about the fact that bees can carry 90% of their body weight in pollen. They're not aerodynamic. So what are they doing if they're not flying? My mom said that to me. She's like, okay, well, if they can't fly, then what are they doing? Well, what they do is they flap their wings so fast that it creates a resonance. Once they get to that resonance, which is, it's different depending on where they are, which is it's the Earth's resonance, usually around 7 point something to 8 or whatever hertz. Once they get to that certain resonance, they're pinned, they're locked. They have essentially a magnetic bubble around them. Not magnetic, but it's like a bubble, and then they can travel. Whatever, and they're just hanging out. If you've ever like looked at a bee and they're just kind of, they just keep that momentum. But once they hit that resonance, then they dart off. You know, they actually fly in straight lines too. That's where the saying beeline, better make a beeline to that, that's actually where it came from. But I'm going to explain to you stuff that, this is just my hypothesis. I think I would guarantee that the people hiding this type of technology and this type of knowledge would be people connected to the oil industry, the fossil fuel industry, because it kind of would put them out of business. Bees have a hollow tube that goes down their throat, and that helps with that resonance. But the thing is, that's how these crafts fly, because they just hit that frequency and then they go. And so by looking at our modern technology, or the things that we know of right now, they're going to hit dead ends anyway, no matter what. So let's go ahead and talk. I'm going to show you all a video about them discussing how bees don't fly and how most insects don't fly, and how levitation is absolutely 100% possible and technically quite easy if we just do it. But they don't want you to know about that. And so that's where the hard time with these researchers, you know, alternative type researchers, are going to have a problem. If they are looking into things that only we understand at this point, like, oh, physics this and physics, you know, like how the actual laws of physics are right now, then they're going to just keep hitting a brick wall. They're going to have to erase their previous thinking, especially with gravity. Gravity is not a force. Gravity is acceleration. But many scientists won't admit that yet. So they're going to have many problems if they don't look outside of their mainstream way of thinking. But anyway, let's look into how bees don't fly and how do they do it? So this is that article about Blink-182 and the To the Stars Academy. And right here, this is quantum pinning or quantum locking. And then they have the levitation to where it'll go around and around and stay exactly on that track, whatever the track is. So we would use the earth lines.
I was in physics class, and the teacher was saying, bumblebees can't fly. It's impossible. They can't, aerodynamically, they can't fly. And I was on the second floor of the classroom, and I looked out the window, and there was a big, beautiful bumblebee staring at me right in the eye. And he was standing there doing something that this guy said he couldn't do. I've never forgotten that lesson, and so from then on, I understood that he was right. Bumblebees can't fly. They levitate. In natural law, there's only one law, and that's you either know or you don't know. There's no guesswork. It's like you know when you're hungry, you know when you want to sleep, you know when you want to go to the restroom. These are knowing. These are all natural knowingness. It has a great deal of difference from the synthetic or invented system of guesswork, of belief, if you will. You can believe this, but somebody can come along and get you to disbelieve it, and vice versa. So you go around and around and around all your life sometimes, for some people, and never seem to get anywhere until you stand up and look into natural law, which is either you know or you don't know. And if you don't know, then you proceed along a line that's comfortable for you. You proceed into the subject matter that you're studying, and you don't give up until you know what it is. There's no more guesswork. And you don't have to try to do this, because if you're following natural law, it will come to you. All you have to do is start it. The first step is just, I want to learn this, I want to know this. And just start it, and pretty soon it will start teaching you. These are all natural knowings. It has a great deal of difference from the synthetic or invented system of guesswork, of belief, if you will.
And then there's Newton's gravitational constant that just sets the scale. It tells you the overall strength of gravity.
The bumblebee, when he starts to beat his wings, when he starts to flap his wings, there's a little cavity, a hollow cavity next to the larynx inside his system that's hollow. And when he beats his wings, he starts to resonate this energy, and it goes back and forth, just similar to a guitar strumming on one side of the room and hitting the same chord on the other side of the room, or somebody hitting a high C and breaking a crystal. It's the same thing. It's resonance. And he said what they do, they resonate. And when they resonate, they eventually reach the resonance of the field around them. And he says once this bumblebee hits that resonant frequency of its surroundings, it becomes a free agent. It creates a magnetic bubble around itself, and it can go anywhere it wants. And I said, well, that's not in any of the science books. He said, I know. You probably never see it there either, but that's what happens. They'll discover it someday and bring it out, but it's just we have a conventional way of doing things, and then we have a natural way of doing things, and they're totally different. They're diametrically opposed in many, many cases.
This might look like a radio-controlled bee, but it's actually a bee with a little radar transponder on it, which means that we can track this bee as it flies around the field. And these little guys can carry 90% of their body weight in pollen, so it won't affect the way it flies.
force between two objects depends on only two things: the mass of the objects and the distance they are apart.
And these little guys can carry 90% of their body weight in pollen. First of all, the bees are flying much faster than predicted, an incredible 30 miles an hour, even when fully laden. The next surprise is where the bees go. They almost always overfly potentially decent food. And once they've found their patch, they then repeatedly shuttle to and from it. And this is the really clever bit. In spite of 30-mile-an-hour crosswinds, whether out or back, they all fly in dead straight lines. They all fly in dead straight lines.
It's a man named Grebennikov from Russia, entomology. He found a certain bug that didn't fly, it levitated. The bug wings themselves were creating an anti-gravity phenomena under certain conditions. And of course what we have here, if you analyze, I think I found the bug. It's actually a beetle. And if you analyze this bug structure, you see a hexagonal pyramid structure array throughout the entire bottom wing of this bug. Turns out that beetles have two wings. The top wing is called a wing cover, and what the beetle does is it lifts this wing cover up and then it flips out its lower wings or inner wings. Now the bug cover protects the inner wings, but when it gets excited or something, it flips these other wings out and it flaps these other wings, and the other wings, the inner wings flap a little, and this beetle goes gyrating around. They can't fly very good, but they sure levitate great, I guess. Now, I don't know of any aerodynamic surface that has bumps all over the bottom to help it fly better. If you blow this up to 430x, you can start to see some of this microstructure of the cells that form where these bumps are. The next slide, at 970x, you start to see what these bumps that stick up are. They're hairs, look like hairs or fibers that grow out of the center of these hexagonal cells. And of course this harkens back to my basic shape power discovery, is that each one of these, because of their shape going down to a point, is creating a magnetic field. And remember, a magnetic field is a rotating piece of vortex in the ether.
Oh, by the way, Grebennikov says the two most common materials in this world are cellulose, because it doesn't decay, and chitin. Chitin is spelled C-H-I-T-I-N. That's what all insects are made out of. Chitin. It's the shells, the body, beetles, roaches, butterflies, everything's made out of chitin, and it doesn't dissolve and it doesn't die. But what's interesting about chitin is dielectric. The Casimir plates are dielectric. They repel electricity. These nanostructure arrays, when you look at them under a microscope, this is what they look like. This is excreted by the bug in growing its tissues, you know, the chitin. That's what it looks like as you go significantly greater magnifications. That's what you see, finer and finer. Look like it's machined. It's almost perfect. Go to the next one, please. This is even a finer magnification, and these are those little resonating cavities that appear to pick up the lower you go, the higher frequencies, like a straw with a certain frequency, like organ pipes. As the organ pipes change in length, the frequency goes up. So the deeper you go into mass with these resonating structures, eventually you're going to hit Cater's frequency below infrared terahertz, and you would be able to cancel gravity. So that's what all this is leading to. This one particular bug, he won't tell us if it's a beetle. A beetle or a butterfly or some kind of a wasp. He won't tell the genus of the insect. He says, I'm not naming the class to which this insect belongs. It seems on the verge of extinction, but you know, you got to protect as much as you can. And he doesn't want to give the name of this because he thinks if this gets out to the world, they'll come in and take every bug they can. I wrote him a letter and I said, look, we don't care about the name of the bug. Just send us a couple of samples. If we can duplicate the effect, prove it's not electrostatic, it's not electromagnetic, we can make artificial, just analyze it with an acoustic microscope, a scanning microscope, get the specific dimension. Is it hexagonal, tetragon, what? And make it into an array. What is the structure, the size? Is it on angstroms, micrometers, what? And just run off sheets of this stuff.
Just as all these companies send out usually a monthly newsletter or something. I got one from RCA headquarters, and it said that they had, one of their experimenters had an object he was flying around that had an anti-gravity drive. In other words, it was self-levitating and could be moved around. And I thought, well, why are we doing this? Why are we messing with all these rockets when we could do this? So I called up headquarters, and first they said, well, it's not true. The experiment didn't really work. And then they said the document didn't even exist. And I said, well, I got it right in my hands here. And I already knew that Nikola Tesla had flown a platform around in the very early 1900s, like 1904. I don't believe that we've gone backwards in technology, and the Russians grabbed everything they could of that technology. And I assume that our government grabbed some of it or all of it.
Yeah, if you can levitate an iceberg, you can end a drought. You could land in a dry lake bed, you could change architecture.
The work that Hutchins has been doing, he has Tesla coils, he has Van de Graaff, and he has, very frankly, static electricity generators. Notice that data doesn't have to make sense.
Right.
Data just has to be truthful.
The truth.
That's right.
It's more important than proving Einstein right or wrong.
Okay, now his data showed everything from a chocolate milkshake snaking toward the top of his room to bowling balls floating in the air.
Very little effort required, about as much as lifting an umbrella, and no centrifugal force. Now, of course, we have the problem of stopping it.
Nikola Tesla was a great inventor and a great humanitarian. Well, Tesla wanted to get into his field, which was free, if you will, energy that comes from the surroundings. He was hired by J.P. Morgan to work with Westinghouse and Edison companies on the East Coast. And Tesla said, I've got it made. I think we can now transmit electrical power through the Earth, through the ionosphere, without any wires or telephone poles. If you gave a device, like a free energy device, a generator that would service all their needs in their home for free, they could then bring out their creative talents, which they were born with and have been suppressed because they've had to toil for a living. They could be tremendous artists beyond our dreams, tremendous engineers beyond our dreams. J.P. Morgan was not buying it. He said, no, we're going to have to tear this stuff down. So Tesla kind of pulled back into himself and decided, well, I guess it's not time for this.
He took a whole bunch of these bug wings and he glued them to like a Venetia blind structure, and he put it into a little platform he built. So they were all, these bug wings were all covered in here. And he used I theorize he used the wing covers as well as the inner wing itself. There's also a kind of a handlebar on this thing with some controls. You can see the thing a little better here in detail. The controls, I think, had to be manipulated continuously and probably vibrated to create the same action that the bug was doing. There was also down at the base some kind of a lever which I suspect controlled the amount of lift he was getting out of this thing. Anyway, Grebennikov claimed that he could fly this thing or levitate it, and it would go around at almost 1,000 miles an hour. Now you ask, how can that happen? You know, well, he said that there was an energy field that built up around this thing due to this gravity field building up in the platform, and by this thing building up, it built out a force field that basically surrounded him and protected him from the local environment. So even though he was flying at 1,000 miles an hour, you could go, you know, you could be wearing your Sunday best suit and not get it flutter a bit at 1,000 miles an hour. But if you get into the other things that he did with shape, they almost mirror the stuff that I discovered. And it proves, I guess, that, you know, there's either two crazy people in the world or there's two people that have found the same discoveries.
Has anybody ever threatened your life? I mean, as far as like trying to possess what you have here, I mean, seeing it as a threat, has anyone ever, like, you know, threatened you and said that, you know, you're on to something and you're not allowed to be doing this? And
no major threats. Mostly people saying, well, you should work for the U.S. government. That's a lot of emails I get are like that, and that they're ready and willing to stand by and give the funding out.
Einstein's work is only a slight modification of Newton's work. But we do understand that Newton's work has, well, Newton's work, for example, Newton says,
this is my one.
Says anything that's in motion tends to remain in motion, right? Okay, so I have something, and I'm taking it around counterclockwise. And see it, and what Newton said is true. It just wants to go around and around and around and around and around. This particular thing is called a cell. It is not, it's clear plastic, there's nothing in it. Okay, now I'm going to take it around clockwise. It says, no, I don't want to do that. It's just like my children. I will do it my own way.
How did it go the other way?
Precisely. A Newton's law.
Is that because of the rotation of the planet, or?
Well, there
Can I try that?
You may. In fact, first of all, send it around counterclockwise.
Okay. This is called a cell?
It is celt, C-E-L-T.
What's in it? Okay, there we go.
Nothing's in it. Plastic. Okay, now take it around clockwise.
Okay.
And it says no, and it goes back to the same number of turns you sent.
Oh, I've never seen anything like that.
Now go out stronger. I know. See, I'm looking for the exception to the rule. You have to, if you can use language, you really need to convert it into mathematics.
But here's one thing, this makes sense to me. If you can cancel out gravity in a falling body, and you can even reduce a percentage of the effects of gravity for aircraft, it would take less fuel, they would be more efficient, and they could hover with less energy, and that much I can figure out.
And the atmospheric edge of the Earth will be meaningless.
I think the realm of it is quite probable, since I was studying some of the older experiments done by T. Brown, Podolinoff, and those folks. And what's interesting about Podolinoff is that the anti-gravity effects seem to go right down in the Earth all the way up to an unknown area.
Tesla said, they're not interested in my time. I want you to take everything I can teach you and go in your time and see if they'll listen to you. And if you don't make it, you're going to have to pass it on, because at the rate we're going, we're on a self-destructive course. Carr said, I will, and he got his own lab started and started really getting into a lot of free energy devices and building them.
So he built a spaceship?
He's building small spaceships then, and he had different sizes, different models. There's a company, Advanced Kinetics, in Costa Mesa. That's where we were living, in Costa Mesa, California. And they're looking for a research and development laboratory technician. They gave me a job, they put me in the research lab, and I was inventing ideas all day long. I just loved it because I like to invent simple ways of doing hard things. We could talk about things that were unlimited, not limited. I said, my mission is to see that we have habitation and transportation in one vehicle. And he said, well, you sound like a guy that's back east getting in trouble right now. His name is Otis Carr. And he put in a patent for a levitation device, and they wouldn't give him the patent. He said, you got to pull that levitation out and anchor it on the ground, and we'll give you a patent on an amusement device. You cannot use levitation. Day and night, 24/7, we were building these small prototypes. And they would range anywhere from 12 inches to 3 feet to 6 feet, to, in size.
And they actually flew, they actually levitated.
Oh, yeah.
And what was the source of the power?
Well, it was magnetic in nature. And
you were actually building these for people to sit in. I mean, not just models.
These were prototypes just to prove what we wanted, and then graduate up to where human habitation could get on board and operate them. In those days, we had counter-rotating wheels, one going clockwise and another going counterclockwise. We had a capacitor, we had small magnets, and we had what's called a Utron. It was a double tetrahedron. That's 2 ice cream cones put with the open ends together. But you have a diamond shape. And we had 12 of them around the periphery of the craft. And we had magnets, horseshoe magnets, 12 of those around the craft. So when you started rotating and counter-rotating, as these Utrons went through the field, they would act as a generator and a capacitor in themselves, and they would generate a lot of power, not necessarily electrical power, but vibrational power. When you get to the resonant frequency of your surroundings, it cancels everything out. It goes to a 0 point. And once you reach 0 point, then you can go anywhere you want.
So I wondered if gravity could be related to its cousin magnetism.
Mm-hmm.
And so I found that when I take 2 magnets together, I have some neodymiums around here that I'm actually afraid of.
They're so strong.
They can danger you.
Mm.
But anyhow, you take a magnet, you go to put them together and they go clunk, right?
Mm.
But you take one of them, move it around, and all of a sudden it doesn't want to go
right.
together.
The repulsive.
So I got I ordered one at $5,000 a piece. Wow. with a 1/4-inch hole through between both of them, and I put a brass bolt and I tightened them down, forcing them together.
Mm-hmm.
And then I put them together in a thing that looks kind of like a rock.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then I got another one that didn't have magnets in it. I got 9 guys that were not educated and didn't have pre-opinions on anything. Mm-hmm. And I dropped my 2 rocks. Mm-hmm. And I said, what I would like you to do is, I told them what I would like you to do is I would like you to take whichever one arrives first, get it in your hand, and when I come down the elevator, hand it to me. Mm-hmm. Now, they looked identical, except for...
And nobody knew what was inside?
No, absolutely not.
Which one arrived first?
The one that had no magnetic field in it.
So you were able to cancel out gravity to a certain degree. You were able to cancel...
Precisely.
Reduce the mass gravity effect.
Precisely. Nature never uses English. It doesn't speak. It doesn't speak any language. But yet it's talking to us all the time.
Wonderful day. I hope you learned a lot, and like, share, and subscribe. And I hope to put out more information like this to help us all understand what's really going on around us and the actual science of things. Science has changed in the last 100 years to where it's like, if we didn't say it, then it's not right. You're a conspiracy theorist, like whatever. But anyway, another thing, if you are from the Stars Academy and you just happen to be watching this, the key is in Antarctica. Just saying. And it's not always where you're looking. Sometimes it's underneath. Anyway, Y'all have a wonderful day. Bye, guys.